The meeting room was cold. Lee Taman stood at attention while the station's senior officers stared at him. Dr. Karath, the station director, had scales that shimmered green under the lights. Her vertical pupils fixed on Taman with something close to disgust. "You understand what you are volunteering for, human?" Her voice came out in a hiss. 3 dire stalker cubs, no mother, no father who will accept them. In 200 years of trying, no species has successfully raised these creatures without parents. Taman nodded. "I understand, ma'am." Commander Thorax clicked his mandibles together. The insectoid officer's exoskeleton was black and shiny. His compound eyes reflected Taman's image 1,000 times. 17 handlers have died attempting this with various apex predator species. Your kind are soft, weak. You lack natural armor, venom, or significant strength. "Yes, sir," Taman said simply. Dr. Karath pulled up a holographic image. 3 small creatures appeared, each about the size of an Earth tiger cub. But these were nothing like tigers. They had 6 legs, armored plates covering their backs, and rows of venomous spines along their spines. Their claws were already 15 centimeters long. Their mouths showed 3 rows of teeth. "The mother died yesterday from complications during birth," Dr. Karath explained. "The father has tried to kill them twice. This is normal behavior. Adult males do not raise young. The cubs are now in isolation. They have not eaten in 36 hours. They are becoming aggressive." She zoomed in on one of the cubs. It was snarling at the camera, its eyes glowing red with stress. Standard protocol requires euthanasia. The cubs cannot survive without proper care. Every attempt to feed them with mechanical systems has failed. They require live teaching from a parent figure. "Let me try," Taman said. "You will die," Commander Thorax stated flatly, "and the cubs will still need to be euthanized. You waste resources and time." "Maybe," Taman agreed, "but maybe not. On Earth I worked with Kodiak bears, Siberian tigers, and saltwater crocodiles. All orphaned. All raised successfully." Dr. Karath's tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "Those are your native species. Your biology shares evolutionary markers with them. These cubs are alien to you. Their instincts do not recognize mammals as parents. They will see you as prey or threat. Nothing else." Taman met her eyes. "Then I'll teach them different." The room fell silent. Dr. Karath and Commander Thorax exchanged looks. Finally, Dr. Karath spoke. 48 hours. If you survive that long and the cubs show no improvement, we proceed with euthanasia. Agreed? Agreed. One more thing, human." Commander Thorax leaned forward. "The isolation habitat has no emergency extraction system. Once you enter, you stay until your 48 hours expire or until you die. We will not risk additional personnel to save you." "Understood." Dr. Karath dismissed him with a wave of her clawed hand. As Taman left, he heard her speaking to Thorax in their shared language. His translator implant picked up the words clearly. "The human will be dead within 6 hours. Prepare the euthanasia equipment." Agreed. "Mammals are too emotional. They think compassion conquers biology. It does not." Taman said nothing. He went to prepare. In the medical bay, he found Park Minho, the station's only other human. Minho was organizing supplies when Taman entered. "I heard," Minho said without looking up. "You're actually doing this?" "Yes, you're insane." Minho finally met his eyes. "Taman, I've read the reports. The Velrathi tried with their best animal handlers. Dead in 4 hours? The Kriltar used their strongest warriors. Dead in 2. The last species that tried was the Goran. They can regenerate limbs. The cubs ate them anyway." "I know." Minho sighed and started pulling items from storage. "Fine. You'll need these." He handed over a medical kit designed for humans. Anti-venom injectors. The cub's venom isn't fatal to humans, but it'll hurt. A lot. Coagulation foam for deep cuts. Bone knit patches. Pain suppressors, but don't use them. Why not? Because if you can't feel pain, you won't know when to back off. And these cubs need to learn boundaries too. Pain is communication. Minho paused. "That's what you're thinking, isn't it? That this is about communication?" Taman nodded slowly. "Every aggressive animal I've worked with wasn't trying to be evil. They were scared, confused, trying to survive. These cubs just lost their mother. They're in a strange place. Everyone they meet is terrified of them. How do you think they feel? Probably hungry and angry." "Exactly. So I need to show them I'm not scared. And I'm not leaving." Minho handed him the supplies. "The whole station will be watching. They've got cameras everywhere in that habitat. This is going to be a spectacle. Good. Let them watch. 3 hours later, Taman stood outside the isolation habitat. Through the transparent aluminum wall, he could see the cubs. They were in the corner, huddled together but not touching. The smallest one was shaking. The largest kept snarling at the walls. Dr. Karath's voice came through the speaker. You have one last chance to reconsider, human. I'm ready. Very well. The door will open for 10 seconds. Once you enter, it seals for 48 hours. May your gods have mercy on you. The door hissed open. Taman stepped through. It sealed behind him with a final clang. The cubs noticed him immediately. 3 pairs of red eyes locked onto him. The largest one stood up on its 6 legs and roared. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. It was a challenge. A warning. Back away or die. Taman walked to the center of the habitat and sat down. He crossed his legs. He placed his hands on his knees. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. The cubs didn't understand this at all. Prey ran, threats attacked. This strange creature did neither. The largest cub approached slowly. Its claws clicked on the metal floor. Taman could hear it breathing heavy, aggressive breaths. It circled him once, twice. Then it bit his shoulder. Pain exploded through Taman's body. The teeth sank deep into muscle. Venom pumped into the wound, adding burning agony to the tearing pain. Blood ran down his arm. Taman didn't move, didn't cry out. He kept breathing steadily. The cub released him, confused. It bit again, this time on his leg. More pain, more venom. Still Taman remained sitting. His hands stayed on his knees. His eyes stayed closed. In the observation room, Commander Thorax stood with his arms crossed. The human has lost its mind. This is not bravery. This is suicide. Dr. Karath watched the monitors with scientific fascination. Its heart rate is elevated but controlled. Blood pressure high but stable. It is in significant pain but showing no panic response. Curious. The second cub approached now. It clawed at Taman's back, tearing through his uniform and into skin. 4 parallel lines of red appeared. The third cub, the smallest, watched from a distance. Taman opened his eyes slowly. He looked at the largest cub. It was standing directly in front of him now, breathing hard, trying to understand why its attacks produced no fear. It's okay, Taman said softly. You're scared, I know. But I'm not here to hurt you, and I'm not leaving you. The cub didn't understand the words, but it understood the tone. Calm, steady, unafraid. It bit him again, this time on the arm. Taman let it happen. The pain was incredible now. His body wanted to run, to fight, to do anything but sit there. But he knew better. Running triggered chase instinct. Fighting triggered kill instinct. Only patience would work. Hours passed. The cubs took turns biting, clawing, testing this strange creature. Taman bled from dozens of wounds. His uniform was in shreds. The venom made his muscles burn and spasm, but he didn't leave. Didn't fight back. Didn't show fear. Finally, after 6 hours, the smallest cub approached. It had been watching the whole time. It walked up to Taman and sniffed him carefully. Then, exhausted from stress and hunger, it collapsed against his side. Taman slowly moved one hand and placed it gently on the cub's armored back. The cub tensed but didn't move away. The other 2 cubs watched this. They didn't understand it. But they were tired too. Slowly, cautiously, they approached. One lay down near his legs. The other pressed against his other side. In the observation room, Dr. Karath's tongue flicked rapidly, a sign of extreme surprise in her species. Impossible. They are resting near him. Dire stalkers do not rest near other species. Commander Thorax said nothing. His mandibles hung open in shock. Taman sat in the center of the habitat, surrounded by 3 deadly predators, bleeding and poisoned and in terrible pain. And he smiled. There you go, he whispered. I'm here. I'm staying. You're safe now. 20 hours had passed since Taman entered the habitat. He had not slept. The cubs had finally, but only in short bursts. Each time they woke, they tested him again with bites and scratches. Each time he endured. Park Minho watched the monitors from the medical bay, shaking his head. His vital signs are terrible. Blood loss is significant. The venom levels in his system would have killed most species by now. How is he still conscious? Dr. Karath stood beside him, her scaled fingers tapping rapidly on her data pad. Human endurance capabilities were underestimated in our files. I am updating them now. The pain tolerance alone is remarkable. He has not used any of the medical supplies you provided. He won't, Minho said quietly. Not yet. He's teaching them that he can survive their attacks. If he medicates now, they'll see weakness. They'll push harder. That is illogical. Pain serves as a warning system. Ignoring it causes damage. Humans don't always follow logic when it comes to protecting others. On the monitors, Taman was attempting something new. He had taken food pellets from the dispenser, specially designed nutrition for dire stalker cubs. He held one in his hand and offered it to the largest cub. The cub sniffed it suspiciously. It had been 36 hours since the cubs last ate, before their mother died. They were hungry, but their instincts told them not to trust this strange creature. Taman waited. His hand remained steady despite the trembling in his muscles from venom and exhaustion. The cub finally snatched the pellet and backed away quickly, swallowing it whole. Good, Taman said softly. He offered another pellet. This time the cub took it without backing away as far. Progress. He turned to the smallest cub, the one that had collapsed against him first. Your turn. He held out a pellet. The small cub approached cautiously and took it gently from his hand. The third cub watched, then came forward for its own food. For the next hour, Taman hand-fed all 3 cubs. It was slow. They were suspicious of every movement. But they were also starving. Survival won over caution. In the observation room, more station personnel had gathered. Word had spread that the human was still alive. It shouldn't have been possible. A crowd of various alien species watched the screens in silence. Commander Thorax arrived, pushing through the crowd. Status? The human has survived 21 hours, Dr. Kareth reported. The cubs are feeding from his hand. I have never seen this behavior in dire stalkers with a non-parent species. It is still meaningless, Thorax insisted, though his voice lacked its earlier certainty. They will kill him when they regain strength. You watch them receive nourishment so they can attack more effectively. But even as he spoke, something strange was happening in the habitat. The smallest cub had finished eating and was now pressing its head against Taman's leg. Not aggressively. It was a gentle pressure. The cub was seeking contact. Taman slowly moved his hand and scratched behind the cub's headplate, in the gap where armor didn't cover. The cub's eyes closed halfway. Its aggressive posture relaxed. Impossible, breathed a Velrathi observer. The pressure points for comfort are species-specific. How does the human know where to touch? Minho smiled slightly. He doesn't. He's trying different spots and watching for reactions. Look, the cub just leaned into his hand. That told him he found the right place. The largest cub noticed this interaction. It approached Taman and pushed the smallest cub away roughly. Then it presented its own head to Taman. Jealousy, Dr. Kareth said, surprised. It wants the same attention. These are pack-bonding behaviors. They should not manifest until the cubs are at least 6 months old, and only with their biological family. Taman scratched the large cub's headplate. The cub made a sound, not quite a purr, but something similar. A rumbling vibration of contentment. The third cub pushed in, demanding attention too. Soon all 3 were pressing against Taman, competing for his touch. He laughed quietly, though the movement hurt his wounded shoulder. You're all going to crush me, he said, but he kept petting them, giving each one attention in turns. Commander Thorax watched in disbelief. His warrior instincts told him this was wrong. Predators did not bond with prey species, yet here it was, happening before his compound eyes. How long until the 48 hours expire? He asked. 26 hours remaining, Dr. Kareth answered. I want full biological scans of the human when he emerges. If he emerges, this behavior must be explained. The hours continued. Taman established a routine. He would feed the cubs, pet them, then slowly move around the habitat. They followed him everywhere. When he sat, they piled around him. When he stood, they stood. They were synchronizing with his movements. At hour 36, Taman finally used the medical supplies. His wounds needed treatment or infection would set in. The cubs watched curiously as he applied coagulation foam to the deeper cuts and used the anti-venom injector. The largest cub sniffed the injector and sneezed. Taman smiled. Yeah, it smells weird, but it helps. He showed the cub the device, letting it investigate. The cub batted at it with one paw, claws retracted. It was playing. Did you see that? Minho pointed at the screen. claws retracted. That's a non-aggressive gesture. They're starting to understand he's not a threat. At hour 40, a test came that no one expected. A maintenance drone entered the habitat through an access panel. It was routine, scheduled to check atmospheric controls. The drones had been entering regularly for years. The adult dire-stalkers ignored them completely, but the cubs did not ignore it. They saw a strange object entering their space, moving toward their human. All three instantly went into attack mode. The largest cub reached the drone first and smashed it with one paw. The middle cub bit into its chassis, shaking it violently. The smallest cub jumped on top and clawed at its sensors. In less than 5 seconds, the drone was destroyed. Then they returned to Taman and pressed against him, making protective circles around him. They were guarding him. The observation room erupted in shocked chatter. Multiple languages mixed together in confusion and disbelief. They defended him, Dr. Kareth said slowly. They perceived the drone as a threat to the human and eliminated it. This level of protective behavior is reserved for pack leaders or parents. Commander Thorax's mandibles clicked rapidly. This changes everything. They do not see him as prey. They see him as family. Taman had to physically restrain the cubs from attacking the remains of the drone. No, stop, that was a friend. He used his body to push them back. Friend, not enemy. The cubs didn't understand the words, but they understood his body language. He was protecting the destroyed drone. That meant it wasn't a threat. Slowly, they calmed down. Taman examined the drone's wreckage and sighed. He looked up at the nearest camera. Sorry about that. They were protecting me. We'll work on recognizing station equipment versus actual threats. In the observation room, a Velrathi scientist spoke up. He apologized for their behavior. He is taking responsibility for them as a parent would. More than that, Minho added. He said we'll work on it. He's already planning their training. He's thinking long-term. The final 8 hours passed more peacefully. The cubs' aggression had transformed into playfulness. They would stalk Taman, pounce on him, but with claws retracted. They were learning the difference between play and attack. When one cub bit too hard during play, Taman would yelp sharply and stop moving. The cub would immediately release him and back away, confused. After several repetitions, the cubs learned to moderate their bites. Negative reinforcement through withdrawal of attention, Dr. Kareth noted. Simple but effective. Why did we never try this? Because you were afraid, Minho said bluntly. Fear makes you maintain distance. Distance prevents bonding. Humans bond first, fear second. Sometimes we don't fear at all. As the 48-hour mark approached, the entire station's population had gathered in and around the observation room. No one wanted to miss this moment. Taman sat in the center of the habitat, exhausted and battered but alive. The 3 cubs slept in a pile around him, their breathing synchronized with his. Occasionally one would wake, check that he was still there, then go back to sleep. When the timer reached 0, Dr. Kareth's voice came through the speaker. Corporal Lee Taman, you have completed 48 hours. The door will open in 10 seconds. You may exit. Taman looked at the sleeping cubs. He looked at the door. Then he looked directly at the camera. Request permission to remain in the habitat, he said clearly. Silence filled the observation room. Repeat your last statement, Dr. Kareth demanded. I'm requesting permission to stay. They're not ready for me to leave. And I'm not done yet. Commander Thorax leaned toward the microphone. You have completed your obligation. The cubs are feeding and stable. You require medical attention. I can treat myself here. The cubs need consistency now. If I leave, they'll think I abandoned them. That'll undo everything we've built. Dr. Kareth and Thorax exchanged long looks. Finally, Dr. Kareth spoke. You are requesting extended assignment? Yes, ma'am. For how long? Taman looked at the sleeping cubs. As long as it takes. Another long silence. Then Dr. Kareth made a decision that would change galactic conservation protocols forever. Permission granted. Additional supplies will be provided through the access panel. Daily medical check-ins will be mandatory. Is this acceptable? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. 3 weeks had changed everything. Taman no longer slept on the cold metal floor. Engineer Choi Yuna had modified the habitat, adding soft bedding, climbing structures, and environmental enrichment based on his detailed requests. She found the entire situation amusing, especially when other aliens asked her why she was taking orders from someone living with death machines. Because he knows what he's doing. she would say with a shrug. And it's entertaining watching everyone else realize they don't. The cubs had grown significantly. Each was now the size of an adult earth lion. Their armor plates had hardened. Their venomous spines had lengthened, and their claws could tear through steel plating. By all logic, they should have been impossible to manage. But Taman had named them, and with names came personality. Bora, the female with blue-tinted armor, was curious and gentle. She would bring Taman things she found interesting. A piece of torn fabric, a loose bolt. Once even a surveillance camera she had somehow pulled from the wall. Juan, the golden male, was bold and protective. He always positioned himself between Taman and the door, as if guarding against threats. Dari, the silver runt, was clever and mischievous. She had learned to open the food dispenser herself, and would steal extra portions when she thought no one was watching. Park Minho visited daily, through the transparent wall, running medical scans and bringing supplies. Today he stood outside shaking his head at what he saw. "You look terrible," Minho said through the communication panel. Taman laughed. He was thinner than before, and new scars covered his arms and legs. But his eyes were bright. "Thanks. You're not so pretty yourself. I'm serious. You're pushing too hard. When was the last time you slept a full 8 hours?" "Define full," Taman said. Juan was currently lying across his lap, making it impossible to move. "They wake up every few hours. Someone has to make sure they're okay. They're apex predators. They're fine. They're babies who lost their mother." "There's a difference." Minho sighed and uploaded new medical data to Taman's pad. "Your cortisol levels are high. Stress hormones. You need real rest." "I'll rest when they're ready to be independent." Behind Taman, Bora approached with something in her mouth. She dropped it at his feet proudly. It was a piece of the destroyed maintenance drone from weeks ago. She had been hoarding parts. "Good girl," Taman said, scratching her head plate. She rumbled with pleasure and pressed against him, nearly knocking him over. She didn't realize how big she had gotten. Minho watched this interaction carefully. "They trust you completely. You know that, right? I've been reviewing the footage. They don't just see you as a parent. They see you as their pack leader. That's incredibly rare, even among their own species." "I noticed," Taman said. He had noticed many things. How Juan would check with him before investigating new objects. How Dari would mimic his movements, learning by observation. How Bora would share her food with him, pushing portions toward him with her snout. "The council observers are arriving next week," Minho said quietly. "They want to see the progress. Dr. Kareth is preparing a full report." Taman's expression darkened. "They want to separate us. They want to see if the cubs can survive with their own kind." "That was always the goal, Taman. These cubs need to be with other dire stalkers eventually." "I know," Taman said softly, "but they're not ready. Not yet." That night, as Taman tried to sleep, he thought about what came next. The cubs were healthy and growing. They had learned basic commands: sit, stay, come. They understood safe versus dangerous. They could feed themselves and were beginning to practice hunting behaviors on the training dummies Yuna had installed. But could they survive with wild, dire stalkers? Adult males were territorial and aggressive. Adult females were selective about which cubs they accepted. The integration process would be dangerous for everyone involved. Dari crawled over and curled up against his chest. She was still the smallest, though now she weighed over 90 kilograms. Her armor pressed uncomfortably against him, but he didn't push her away. She made a soft chirping sound, the noise they made when content. "What am I going to do with you three?" he whispered. The following week, the observation room filled with officials. Galactic Council members, conservation specialists, and representatives from a dozen species all gathered to evaluate the human experiment. Dr. Kareth presented her findings with scientific precision. Subject Taman has achieved a 97% success rate in behavioral modification. The cubs respond to verbal commands, demonstrate pack loyalty, and show no unprovoked aggression toward station personnel observed through barriers. A Velrathi Council member raised an objection. "But will this translate to survival in the wild preserve? The cubs have bonded with a human. They may reject their own species." "That is our concern," agreed a reptilian diplomat. "These cubs may be too domesticated. We risk creating animals that cannot fulfill their ecological role." Commander Thorax, who had become an unexpected advocate for the program, spoke up. "Then we test them. Controlled introduction to adult specimens. Observe their behavior. That test will likely result in dead cubs, the Velrothi council member said bluntly. Adult direstalkers do not accept unrelated young, especially young that smell like another species. Taman had been listening to this debate through the communication system in the habitat. He pressed the button to speak. Then I go with them. The room fell silent. Dr. Kareth turned to the camera. Explain. I go into the preserve with them. I help with the introduction. If the adults see me as part of their pack, they might accept the situation. That is suicide, the Velrothi council member stated. You are proposing to enter an environment with multiple adult dire stalkers. They will kill you immediately. Maybe, Taman said, or maybe they'll be confused enough by the situation to hesitate. That hesitation could be enough time to establish that we're not threats. Minho, standing in the back of the room, closed his eyes. He knew that tone in Taman's voice. It was determination mixed with stubbornness. There would be no talking him out of this. I cannot authorize this, Dr. Kareth said firmly. The risk is unacceptable. Then the cubs stay here, Taman responded. Because I won't send them in alone. If they're not ready, we keep training. If they are ready, I go with them. A long argument followed. Council members debated. Scientists presented data. Security officers outlined risks. Through it all, Taman remained firm. He would not abandon the cubs. Finally, a compromise was reached. A controlled test would be conducted in a secure section of the preserve. One adult female dire stalker, selected for her calmer temperament, would be introduced to the cubs with Taman present. Multiple safety measures would be in place. Emergency extraction teams would stand by. But understand this, human, the Velrothi council member said coldly. If the adult attacks, we extract you by force. We will not risk losing personnel for cubs that might not survive anyway. Fair enough, Taman agreed. Preparation took 3 days. The secure test area was a 50-meter enclosure with reinforced walls and multiple exit points. The adult female, designated Subject Theta 9, was transported in carefully. She was 7 years old, had successfully raised 2 litters, and had shown non-aggressive behavior toward handlers. But she was still a dire stalker, 3 meters long, half a ton of muscle and armor with claws that could disembowel prey in seconds. The security team treated her with extreme caution. Park Minho helped Taman prepare in the medical bay. Last chance to back out. Not backing out. Didn't think so. Minho handed him an emergency beacon. If things go bad, press this. We'll flood the area with sedative gas and pull you out. That would sedate the cubs too. Better sedated than dead. Minho paused. Taman, you know I support what you're doing, but you have to promise me something. What? If this doesn't work, if the cubs can't integrate, you let them go. You don't keep trying until you get yourself killed. Promise me. Taman looked at his friend for a long moment. I promise. In the habitat, the cubs sensed something was different. Taman's scent had changed, stress hormones, adrenaline. They pressed against him anxiously, making worried chirping sounds. It's okay, he told them, though he wasn't sure it was. We're going on a trip. You're going to meet someone new. Someone like you. Bora tilted her head, studying his face. She had learned to read his expressions remarkably well. She knew he was worried. The transport to the test area was tense. The cubs had never been outside their habitat. They stayed close to Taman, their eyes wide as they took in new sights and smells. Station personnel backed away as they passed, instinctive fear overriding curiosity. Choi Yuna watched from a safe distance. Good luck, she called. Try not to die. I just finished all those habitat modifications. Taman managed a smile. I'll do my best. The entrance to the test area loomed ahead. Through the transparent section, they could see the adult female. She was massive compared to the cubs. She paced back and forth, agitated by the new environment. Dr. Kareth's voice came through Taman's earpiece. We are beginning the test. The adult female will be released into the main enclosure. You will enter from the opposite side with the cubs. Proceed slowly. Do not make sudden movements. If she charges, retreat immediately to the safe zone. Understood. The doors opened. Taman took a deep breath and stepped forward. The observation room erupted in chaos. Alarms blared. Security teams rushed toward the enclosure. Dr. Kareth shouted orders in 3 different languages. Commander Thorax had his hand on the emergency sedative release, but no one moved fast enough to stop what happened next. The adult female dire stalker stopped mid-charge. She was 10 meters from Taman and the cubs when confusion overrode her aggression. Her head tilted, processing something that didn't fit any instinct she possessed. Prey ran. Always. That was the rule of nature. Threats attacked or postured from a distance, but this small, soft creature had placed itself between her and the cubs, made a challenge sound, and held its ground. It made no sense. Taman's heart hammered in his chest. His human brain screamed at him to run, to get to safety, to do anything except stand here facing down a predator that could kill him in seconds. But his experience told him something different. Running would trigger the chase. Showing weakness would invite attack. His only chance was to convince this massive creature that he was neither prey nor challenger. He was pack. Behind him, the cubs remained still, though he could feel them trembling. Juan made a low growl, protective instinct fighting with fear. Derry pressed against the back of his legs. Bora watched the adult female with intense focus, her body coiled to spring if needed. "Easy," Taman said quietly, his voice steady despite his fear. "We're not here to fight. We're family, pack. You understand pack, don't you?" The adult female took another step forward. Slower this time, cautious. She lowered her head, scenting the air. She could smell the cubs on Taman. His scent was all over them. Weeks of constant contact had mixed their smells together. In the observation room, a xenobiologist spoke rapidly. "She is confused by the scent combination. Cubs should smell like their mother. These smell like the human. She does not know how to categorize this." "Will she attack?" asked a council member. "Unknown. This situation has no precedent." Park Min-ho watched the monitors with his hands clenched. "Come on, Taman, read her. You can do this." Dr. Karath had her finger hovering over the sedative release. "If she charges again, I am activating emergency protocols." The adult female circled slowly, keeping her distance but not retreating. She was analyzing the situation, trying to understand. The cubs were obviously juvenile dire stalkers. Her species, her kind. But the adult with them was wrong. All wrong, weak body, no armor, no significant weapons. Yet it stood without fear, protecting the young. Bora made a decision that changed everything. She stepped out from behind Taman and approached the adult female. She was small and vulnerable, but she moved with confidence. She had learned that confidence from watching Taman. "Bora." "No," Taman said softly, but he didn't grab her. Interfering now might trigger the wrong response. The blue-tinted cub walked halfway across the distance between them and sat down. She tilted her head and made a chirping sound, the greeting noise young dire stalkers made toward adults. The adult female froze. The sound was correct. The posture was correct. This was proper juvenile behavior. Her aggression faded slightly, replaced by curiosity. She approached Bora slowly, sniffing carefully. The cub remained sitting, patient and calm. She had learned this from Taman, that patience and stillness often worked better than aggression. The adult female circled Bora once, then twice. Then she did something remarkable. She lowered her head and touched her snout to Bora's head plate. It was a gesture of acceptance, a greeting between pack members. In the observation room, Dr. Karath's hand moved away from the emergency control. "She has accepted the female cub." "This is extraordinary." "One down," Min-ho muttered. 2 to go. Encouraged by his sister's success, Juan stepped forward next. He was larger and bolder than Bora. He approached the adult female directly, showing no fear. This was a mistake. The adult female's posture shifted immediately. Bold young males were often challenges to dominance. She snarled and snapped at him, driving him back. Juan stumbled backward, startled. He had never been truly rejected before. His instinct was to fight back, to prove himself. His muscles tensed. His claws extended. Taman recognized the signs. "Juan, no, down." The golden cub looked at Taman, confused. His instinct said fight. His training said obey. "Down," Taman repeated firmly. "Trust me." Juan hesitated, then lowered himself to the ground, submissive posture. It went against everything his predator nature screamed at him to do. But he trusted his human more than his instincts. The adult female watched this with fascination. The young male had obeyed a creature that should have been prey. This was pack behavior at its most complex. The strange, soft creature was clearly the dominant member of this odd family group. She approached Juan cautiously. He remained down as Taman had commanded. She sniffed him thoroughly, then made a decision. She touched her snout to his headplate. Acceptance, but with a warning. She was dominant over him. He had to acknowledge this, Juan understood. He chirped softly, the sound of submission and respect. The adult female rumbled in satisfaction. Now only Dari remained. The smallest cub stayed pressed against Taemin's leg, unsure. She was clever enough to see that her siblings had been accepted, but young enough to still need encouragement. Taemin knelt slowly, making himself smaller and less threatening. He scratched Dari's headplate gently. "It's okay, little one. She's family now. Go say hello." Dari looked up at him with those red eyes, seeking reassurance. He nodded. She took a tentative step forward, then another. The adult female saw the smallest cub approaching, and her demeanor changed again. Small cubs triggered protective instincts. She made a soft rumbling sound, the noise female dire stalkers made to comfort their young. Dari responded immediately. She rushed forward and pressed against the adult female's leg, seeking the comfort of a mother figure she barely remembered. The adult female wrapped her tail around the small cub protectively. In the observation room, several alien species made sounds of surprise and emotion. A Velrathi scientist had to wipe moisture from their eyes, a rare display of feeling for their cold-blooded kind. "The integration is successful," Dr. Karath announced, her voice showing more emotion than anyone had heard before. "The adult female has accepted all 3 cubs. This has never been documented outside of biological family groups. It is because of the human," Commander Thorax said quietly. "She accepted them because he vouched for them. His presence made them legitimate in her eyes." Taemin remained kneeling, watching the reunion. Relief flooded through him so intensely he felt dizzy. They were safe. The cubs were going to be okay, but he knew his job wasn't finished. The adult female had accepted the cubs, but what about him? He was still an anomaly, still a creature that didn't fit her understanding of the world. She turned her massive head toward him. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither moved. Taemin could see intelligence in those red eyes. She was evaluating him, trying to understand what he was to her new pack. Slowly, Taemin stood. He took a step forward, then another. The adult female tensed but didn't retreat. He walked until he was within touching distance, close enough that she could kill him with one swipe if she chose. "Thank you," he said softly. "For accepting them, for giving them a chance." She couldn't understand his words, but she understood his tone. Non-threatening, respectful, grateful. She leaned forward and sniffed him thoroughly. He smelled like the cubs. He smelled like pack, but he also smelled strange, foreign, wrong in ways she couldn't define. Taemin waited, barely breathing. This was the moment that would determine everything. The adult female made her decision. She touched her snout to his forehead, then turned away. It wasn't full acceptance, not like she had given the cubs, but it was tolerance, recognition. He was part of their strange pack, even if she didn't fully understand how. The cubs rushed to Taemin, pressing against him in relief and happiness. The adult female watched this with what might have been amusement. Her new pack was definitely unusual. In the observation room, celebration broke out. Scientists cheered. Council members congratulated each other. Even the skeptical Velrathi admitted this was a historic moment. Park Minho leaned against the wall, finally allowing himself to breathe normally. He actually did it. The absolute madman actually did it. Choi Yuna appeared beside him, grinning. "Never doubt a human's ability to make friends with things that should eat them. It's what we do best." Over the next week, the integration continued in controlled stages. The adult female, whom Taemin had started calling Nari, taught the cubs things he never could. How to hunt properly, how to fight with their own kind, how to communicate in ways that went beyond his simple commands. But the cubs never forgot who raised them. Every evening they would return to Taemin, seeking his presence and approval. Nari watched this with something like acceptance. She had come to understand that this strange creature was part of their pack structure, even if his role was unlike anything in her species' history. Taemin spent his nights in a shelter at the edge of the enclosure. The cubs would pile around the outside, keeping him company. Nari would rest nearby, protective of her new family group. Dr. Karath visited him one evening as the sun set, casting purple light across the preserve. "You should be proud, Corporal. You have achieved something remarkable." They did the work. Taman said, watching Bora play fight with Juan. I just gave them a chance. 6 months later, the preserve had transformed. Not physically. The massive enclosure still stretched across a continent-sized space, housing some of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. But something fundamental had changed in how the station operated, how the aliens viewed their work, and how they understood the strange species called humans. Taman stood at the observation platform, watching his cubs through electrobinoculars. They weren't really cubs anymore. Bora, Juan, and Dari had reached juvenile size, each now massing over 200 kilograms. They moved through the preserve with confidence, their armor plates gleaming in the alien sunlight. They were hunting. Taman watched as Bora used the stalking technique he had taught her, combining it with the pack coordination Nari had demonstrated. Juan provided the muscle, driving prey toward Dari, who used her cleverness to predict escape routes. It was beautiful and terrifying to watch. They are thriving, Park Minho said, joining him on the platform. Nari has taught them well. She's been a good mother to them, Taman agreed. Better than I could be for some things. But they still look for you, Minho pointed out. Every evening. Like clockwork, it was true. Despite being integrated with their own kind, despite Nari's care and teaching, the cubs maintained their bond with Taman. Every sunset they would come to the barrier nearest his quarters and wait. Sometimes Taman would go down and spend time near them, separated by reinforced walls. Sometimes he just waved. They always responded, chirping and pressing against the barrier as close to him as they could get. Dr. Kareth arrived with a data pad and her usual efficient manner. We have your new assignment details, Corporal. The transport leaves in 3 days. Taman took the pad without looking at it. Can I say goodbye to them first? That is why I am here. The Council has approved a final direct contact session, 1 hour supervised in the secure meeting area. She paused, her scaled face showing something almost like sympathy. They will not understand why you are leaving. I know. The next 2 days passed too quickly. Taman prepared his equipment, reviewed his new assignment details, and tried not to think about leaving the cubs behind. His new post was on the other side of the galaxy, a breeding program for void serpents, massive space-dwelling creatures that most species classified as cosmic horrors. It was a promotion and recognition of his success, but it meant leaving. Choi Yuna helped him pack, making jokes to keep the mood light. Void serpents. Those things eat starships for breakfast. You know that, right? I read the file. And you're still going? It's the job, she shook her head, smiling. Humans. We see something that could kill us and think, yes, I should definitely hug that. It's a miracle we survived long enough to reach space. Or maybe it's why we survived, Taman suggested. Because we make friends instead of enemies. On the final evening, Taman entered the secure meeting area. It was the same place where he had first introduced the cubs to Nari, the place where everything had changed. The door on the opposite side opened and 3 massive juvenile dire stalkers bounded through. They had grown so much. Bora's blue-tinted armor was fully developed now. Juan's golden plates were thick and battle-scarred from practice fights. Dari, still the smallest, had developed a clever look in her eyes that reminded Taman of herself as a tiny cub. They rushed to him immediately, making excited chirping sounds. They pressed against him, nearly knocking him over with their enthusiasm. 6 months apart would have been nothing to them. In their minds, he was simply there again as he should be. Taman laughed and tried to pet all 3 at once, an impossible task. Hey guys, look at you. You're huge. Bora rumbled happily and pushed her head against his chest. Juan circled him protectively, checking him for injuries or threats. Dari tried to climb into his lap, not realizing she was far too big for that now. In the observation room, an expanded audience watched. The station's population had grown interested in Taman's work over the months. Council representatives monitored everything, taking notes for the expanded conservation program. And in the back, Commander Thorax stood with several other Kriltar officers watching silently. This is the human that survived? One of the officers asked. This is the human that succeeded, Thorax corrected. There is a difference. Taman spent the hour playing with the cubs, teaching them a few new commands and simply being present with them. But eventually he had to explain what came next. I have to go away, he said softly, knowing they wouldn't understand the words but hoping they might understand the meaning. There are other animals that need help. Other cubs without parents. I have to go take care of them. Dari tilted her head, sensing something wrong in his tone. Bora pressed closer as if proximity could fix whatever was making him sad. Juan made a questioning rumble. But you're going to be fine. Taman continued, scratching each of their head plates in turn. You have Nari, you have each other. You're strong and smart and capable. You don't need me anymore. Even as he said it, he wasn't sure it was true. They might not need him for survival, but the bond they had formed was deeper than simple necessity. It was family. The hour ended too soon. As Taman stood to leave, the cubs became agitated. They sensed something was different. This wasn't a normal goodbye. Bora blocked his path to the door, refusing to let him pass. Juan paced anxiously. Dari made distressed chirping sounds. I have to go, Taman said, his voice breaking slightly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He gently pushed past Bora and walked to the exit. The cubs followed him to the barrier, pressing against it, their chirps becoming more desperate. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. As the door sealed behind him, he heard them calling. In the observation room, several aliens looked away, uncomfortable with the display of emotion. Dr. Kareth approached him. They will adjust. Nari will comfort them. Will they understand why I left? No, but they will remember you. She handed him a small device. This is a remote monitor. You can check on them whenever you wish. Watch them grow. See them thrive. Taman took it gratefully. Thank you. Thank you, Corporal. Your work here has changed everything we thought we knew about cross-species bonding and conservation. The Council has already implemented your techniques at 17 other facilities. 3 days later, Taman boarded the transport ship. Park Minho and Choi Yuna came to see him off. Try not to get eaten by void serpents, Yuna said, hugging him. I hear they're even worse than dire stalkers. I'll manage. Minho handed him an updated medical kit. This is specialized for deep space environments and serpent venom. Call me if you need anything. And Taman, he paused, what you did here mattered. You saved a species. Don't forget that. As the transport lifted off, Taman activated the remote monitor. The screen showed the preserve, where 3 juvenile dire stalkers sat near the barrier looking up at the sky as if they knew he was leaving. Nari stood behind them, watching over her adopted cubs. The journey to his new assignment took 2 weeks. During that time, news of his work spread through the galactic community. Articles appeared in scientific journals. Conservation programs requested human consultants. The term human bonding protocol entered official terminology. Commander Thorax published a military analysis paper titled The Tactical Implications of Human Pack Bonding Behavior. In it, he argued that humans' greatest strength wasn't technology or intelligence, but their capacity to form alliances with virtually any species, even those designed by evolution to be incompatible with cooperation. When Taman arrived at his new station, he was met by a nervous reptilian director and a security team that looked at him with something between respect and fear. Corporal Lee Taman, the director said formally, "We have 7 void serpent eggs. They will hatch within the month." The parents were killed by poachers. Standard protocol says the hatchlings cannot survive without their parents present. But you're going to let me try, Taman finished. Yes. Though I must inform you, void serpents are classified as cosmic horrors by 47 species. They generate localized distortions in spacetime. Their digestive acids can dissolve starship hulls, and they are highly aggressive when threatened. So are the dire stalkers, Taman said calmly. What do I need to know about their biology? As the director launched into a detailed briefing, Taman received a message on his personal comm device. It was from Park Minho with an attached video file. He opened it during a break. The video showed the preserve at sunset. Bora, Juan, and Dari were playing together, chasing each other in the failing light. They looked happy, healthy, thriving. Then something unexpected happened. A 4th dire stalker appeared in the frame, Nari. She approached the barrier nearest Taman's old quarters and placed something on the ground. The camera zoomed in. It was a piece of torn fabric from Taman's old uniform, something the cubs must have kept. Nari had found it and brought it to their meeting place. She lay down beside it and waited as if expecting him to appear. The cubs noticed and came to join her. All 4 dire stalkers sat together at the barrier, looking toward where Taman used to be. Minho's message read, "They come here every evening. All of them. Nari included. I think she understands what you meant to them. She brings things that smell like you and guards them. I've never seen an adult dire stalker do anything like this.
Thought you should know they haven't.